Radiant Child, the story of young artist JeanMichel Basquiat, written and illustrated by Javaka Steptoe. Somewhere in Brooklyn, between hearts that thump, double Dutch, and hopscotch, and salty mouths that slurp sweet ice, a little boy dreams of being a famous artist. In his house, you can tell a serious artist dwells. As he sits at a table with pencils scattered everywhere, JeanMichel draws from morning until night with a serious face amid a storm of papers. He refuses to sleep until he has created a masterpiece. At night, images enchant JeanMichel's mind, and he wakes from his dreams to add one more line. His drawings are not neat or clean, nor does he color inside the lines. They are sloppy, ugly, and sometimes weird, but somehow still beautiful. His art comes from his mother, Matilda, a Puerto Rican woman who designs and sews, cooks and cleans, and makes the house look like a stylish magazine. But most important, she lies on the floor and draws with JeanMichel on his father's old work papers. From her, he learns that art is not only in the poetry books she reads to him, or in the theaters and museums they visit. Art is the street games of little children, in our style and the words that we speak. It is how the messy patchwork of the city creates new meaning for ordinary things. While visiting the museum, they look at his favorite works of art, reading the story behind each artist, reading the story behind each work. This is how JeanMichel learns what it means to be a famous artist. Back at home, he creates art on the floor as his father, Gerald, plays jazz records. Mama Matilda cooks a rose compolio and calls JeanMichel mi amor. The energy and life of the city can be felt in each line of his drawings. As time goes by, JeanMichel learns that art has a healing power. After a car accident, he is scared and confused. Matilda gives him a book to calm his fears. It is filled with pictures of bones, skulls, and other body parts. JeanMichel draws from it until he knows it all by heart. He is no longer afraid. Back at home, JeanMichel's body heals, but his heart breaks. His mother's mind is not well, and the family breaks. She no longer lies on the floor and draws with JeanMichel, but sits by the window singing only to birds. JeanMichel is confused and filled with a terrible blues when Matilda can no longer live at home. He tries drawing the terrible out of his blues, but things are not the same. As JeanMichel grows older, he visits his mother when he can, always bringing his artwork to show, telling her that one day it will be in a museum, when I am a famous artist. A teenager now, JeanMichel decides, Papa, I will be very, very famous one day. With a sly look, a twinkle in his eye, JeanMichel leaves Brooklyn for New York City, the Lower East Side, a concrete jungle where only the tough survive. During the day, dressed in a green jumpsuit splattered with paint, JeanMichel stays with friends, sleeping on couches and floors, leaving a barrage of collages and poem-filled papers everywhere he goes. At night, JeanMichel spray paints the walls downtown with poems and drawings that catch the eye of artists, gallery goers, and passers-by. Under his art, he signs the name SAMO, copyright. Instead of JeanMichel, everybody wants to know, who is Samo? Samo moves from street corners to art gallery walls with powerful color composition and line, collaging and painting on anything he can find. His art is still not neat or clean, and definitely not inside the lines, but somehow still beautiful. With his magical charm, JeanMichel draws a crowd, but when it's time to work, he prefers to be alone with the radio and TV on full blast. Now in expensive suits, splattered with paint, he flips through stacks of magazines and open books and paints into the night, and sometimes for days at a time, while sounds and images jump into his head. JeanMichel, an artist among artists, never doubts one line, creating from a soundtrack that is all his own. People describe him as radiant, wild, a genius child. But in his heart he is king, so he draws crowns for himself and others he admires. A grown man now, with the art world in his hands, JeanMichel still visits his mother when he can. And at his most important shows, above all the critics, fans, and artists he admires, the place of honor is his mother's, a queen on a throne. He is now a famous artist. More about JeanMichel Basquiat. JeanMichel Basquiat was born on December 22, 1960, and grew up in Brooklyn, New York. His father was from Haiti, and his mother's family was from Puerto Rico. Living in a trilingual household, JeanMichel spoke French, Spanish, and English. While his father had some artistic skill, it was JeanMichel's mother, Mathilde, who drew with him and took him to museums. He particularly liked seeing the painting called Guernica by Pablo Picasso in the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. It now hangs in the Museo Reina Sofia in Madrid, Spain. Some people think that Guernica shows the suffering of people and animals when warplanes bombed the village of Guernica, Spain during the Spanish Civil War. It is one of the most famous anti-war paintings ever created, a form of activism through art, and a piece that shows the power of an artist's voice, which may have inspired young JeanMichel. When he was about 7 years old, JeanMichel was hit by a car and badly injured. His mother gave him a copy of Gray's Anatomy, perhaps to help him understand what was happening inside his body as he recovered. This medical textbook became an important influence on his later work. That same year, Mathilde began suffering from mental health issues and eventually left the family home, a difficult loss of an important daily role model for JeanMichel. As he grew older, though, he visited his mother and showed her his artwork, which helped maintain their relationship. At age 17, JeanMichel moved away from home. He sold postcards and t-shirts of his own designs to support himself, and he used whatever he could find as a canvas. His first recognized work was a graffiti series created with his friend Al Diaz starting in 1977, tagged with the name Samo. The traditional art world was looking for something new, modern, and connected to street culture, and Basquiat arrived at the perfect time. His first public exhibition was in the Times Square show in 1980, and his first solo show was in Italy in 1981, the year he sold his first painting, which would be followed by many others. He also met and became friends with other famous artists of the time period, like Andy Warhol and Keith Haring. Basquiat lived an exhilarating life, but underneath the excitement of his success, he struggled with a drug addiction until his death on August 12, 1988, when he was only 27 years old. His paintings now sell for millions of dollars and are collected and displayed in museums all over the world, such as the Whitney Museum of American Art and the Brooklyn Museum. Motifs and symbolism in Basquiat's work. Basquiat was known for his charisma, energy, and bold, captivating art. His work was often political and expressive, with a strong point of view and message, which is why letters, words, and phrases sometimes appear in his pieces. He addressed topics such as the struggles of everyday people in their fight against capitalism, colonialism, and those with power. His work also spoke from Black culture, including influences from African and African diaspora art, religion, history, and folklore, improvisational jazz, bebop, hip-hop, sports, and the melting pot culture of New York City. Like many artists, Basquiat used motifs, recurring subjects or ideas, in his paintings. See if you can find examples of these motifs throughout the book. For Basquiat, crowns represented many things, such as power or strength, and he often gave crowns to others in his artwork as a sign of respect. Eyes often represented remembering, seeing, or understanding the past or the present. Cars, trucks, and airplanes often symbolized Basquiat's childhood and the car accident that badly injured him. A note from Chavaka Steptoe. I first became familiar with JeanMichel Basquiat's artwork when I was in high school, and even more so in college. Like Basquiat, I spent time with a diverse mix of people in New York City's Greenwich Village. It was there that I saw his graffiti and posters, and read about him in the New York Times article, New Art, New Money. And I even went to one of his art shows. Basquiat's success seemed to me to begin an era of inclusion and diversity in fine arts, where there had been little to none. This meant, as a young African American artist coming up, that my chances of having my voice heard and achieving mainstream success were majorly expanded. But it wasn't until much later, at an exhibit at the Brooklyn Museum in 2005, that I truly understood how much his work meant to me. It made me realize that I wanted to help young people connect with his art the way that I had. I also wanted young readers and the adults in their lives to be able to use Basquiat's story as a catalyst for conversation and healing. As someone whose mother suffers from mental illness, I believe this story touches on an important topic, as diagnosable mental disorders affect about 1 in 4 adults in the United States every year. Most important, I hope that young readers will see that Basquiat's artwork is more than just bright colors or intriguing composition or text. It is thoughtful, powerful, and interesting. And like all artwork, it is not something that is good or bad. His art was his voice, which he used to speak about complex social issues and politics that are still relevant today. Instead of reproducing or including copies of real Basquiat paintings in this book, I chose to create my own interpretations of certain pieces and motifs. By painting them on textured pieces of wood, blending his style with mine, my goal was to show how his work has inspired me and to give young readers a sense of his artistic style. I hope they will want to learn more about him and will look for examples of his actual work online and in museums. JeanMichel Basquiat went after his dream of becoming a famous artist with all his heart. There is no doubt he made a mark on the world and encouraged others to do the same. And that mark matters, especially to artists and storytellers like me. Steptoe.